Hi everyone. So today we're going to do just a quick introductory video to Audacity. Audacity is a free open source software for recording and editing digital audio. So you can download it for your own computers at home. It works both on PC and Mac, and it's incredibly useful, and I definitely encourage you to explore it and get the most out of it. So first, let's go ahead and open it. You can find it on the Launchpad. Just click on the Launchpad and look for the Audacity logo, which looks like a pair of headphones with a waveform in between. We'll let that open up. And what I'm going to do to get started is to drag a sound file into Audacity. It reads most of the common audio file formats. So I'm just going to grab the baby that we've used for other examples and drag it in. You can use one of your sounds that you've downloaded from freesound.org or some other source. So I'm dragging my sound in, and we can just go ahead and hit the play button here to take a listen to it, or hit the space bar. So Audacity is a waveform editor, which means that the main interface here displays the waveform of a sound. So when we look at the large scale, we can see the whole sound, and we can see the amplitude of the sound in general. We can see the loudest points, and we can see the softer points and the silent areas. And if we zoom in and go to View and zoom in, or as you can see, to zoom is Command 1, to zoom out is Command 3. So I'm just going to do that. I'm going to click here and just zoom in. If we zoom in, we can see the actual waveform of the sound at a micro level, and we can even keep zooming in until we see the individual samples of the sound. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom back out all the way. And you can also see here that there's a time ruler in Audacity, so we can see that we're starting at 0 seconds, and we can see how long our sound is. The sound is about 18.5 seconds. And we can sort of position ourselves within the sound. So this would be 8 seconds in, 12 seconds, etc. So let's look at a few simple editing functions in Audacity. First, I can use my mouse to just drag and select certain portions of the sound. So let's say I just want to select this portion here. If I drag from one end to the other, now this portion is highlighted, it's selected, and I can use the space bar to just listen to this section. And now that it's selected, I could simply hit the delete key to delete it, and now my sound no longer has that section. Let's say I didn't want to delete that. I can go to Edit and undo that, or hit Command Z. And maybe I wanted to copy and paste that section. Just like in any program, I could hit Command C. Maybe I'll arrow over to the end of my sound and paste it in with Command V. You can see here, Edit, copy is Command C, paste is Command V. So I'll go ahead and paste it there. Now I've got my sound twice. Maybe I'll paste it a third time. So now I've got this sound repeating. And on and on. So let's look at a few of the other simple transport or playback functions. Of course, you can rewind to the beginning of the sound and play it. You can stop the sound, skip to the end, or go back to the beginning and play it. And then hit the pause or just the P key, and then hit that again to unpause the sound. Now, the interface to Audacity has a lot of the same functions as a digital audio workstation like GarageBand. If you notice, what we have here on our baby sound, it's laid out on a track, not unlike in GarageBand. And here we have a track header. It tells us the name of our track, which is just the name of the sound file that I dragged in. And here we can perform all sorts of functions like mute and solo, just like in GarageBand. You can also raise and lower the volume or change the panning from the left speaker to the right speaker. We can also delete a track if we decide we don't want it by hitting the X in the corner. But maybe I do want that track still. I hit Command F to fit it to the window. And then we can go up here to Tracks and add additional tracks. So I'm going to add a new track. We can add audio tracks or stereo tracks. Right now the track that I have here is mono, but let's look at a sound file with a stereo track. So I'm going to pull in another sound file. This is one of your listening assignments, a Stockhausen piece. And here we have a stereo sound file. So our track header is connecting two different waveforms, one for the left speaker and one for the right. And if we were to zoom in closely, we would see that in some sections of the sound we have some things that are happening in the left speaker that are not happening in the right speaker.
Sonne und Mond.
But let's go back to our baby sound. And I'm actually going to add a new track. And I'm going to mute the baby for now. And now I'm going to generate some sound. So Audacity doesn't just have to work with audio files that you import into the program, but it also can generate its own sound. So I'm going to go up to Generate, and I can choose from a few different options. First I'm going to generate some noise. And it gives me the option between white noise, pink noise, and brown noise or Brownian noise. I'm going to just stick with white noise for now. It lets me choose the amplitude. I'm going to stick with 0.9, that's fine. And then it lets me choose how much time, what the duration of the white noise is. It's defaulting to 30 seconds, but that's kind of a lot. I'm going to go with just 20 seconds. And so now we have 20 seconds of white noise. I won't make you listen to all of that. I'm going to get rid of my white noise and generate something else. I'm going to generate a tone. So we can choose from a few different waveforms, from a sine wave to a square wave or a sawtooth wave. Let's stick with a sine wave. We can choose the frequency, 440 is fine, set the amplitude, and the duration. Let's do 20 seconds of sine wave. And see here we have a waveform. So there's a few different effects I'd like to show you in Audacity, including some of the ones we talked about in class last time. First, let's simplify our sound by deleting everything but just the beginning of this sound. I'm going to select it and delete. I'm going to fit this to the window so I can see the whole sound and rewind. So now I'm going to select the whole sound. I'll do that by pressing Command A for all, and then I'm going to go up to Effect. And here we have a lot of different choices of different effects and processes we can perform on the sound. Let's look at some of the ones that we talked about last time, including reverse. If I click on reverse, Audacity simply reverses the sound, and we can listen to it backwards. I'll undo that. Another useful effect is to change the speed of the sound. This is just like changing the speed on a tape recorder or a record player. We can change the speed using traditional vinyl speeds, like changing from 33 rotations per minute to 45, which would make the sound a little bit faster. We can take a preview. And that makes the sound faster and a little higher. We can also change the sound by just typing in a percent. We can make it 100% faster, which makes it twice as fast and sounds an octave higher. Or we can make it a negative number, say -50, which makes it sound half as fast and an octave lower. Let's go ahead and hit OK. And now we have the baby sounding an octave lower. So I'm going to undo that. We're going to return to our original baby sound. Now because Audacity is a digital audio editor, it can perform a few functions we couldn't perform on a tape recorder. One of those is to decouple tempo from pitch. So if we select our sound again, we can go to Effect, and we also have Change Pitch and Change Tempo. While Change Speed marries tempo and pitch together, so a sound will get slower and lower or faster and higher, changing pitch and changing tempo do these in isolation. So let's change pitch first. Here we can change our pitch using tonal intervals, like moving from the note G up a major third or 4 semitones to the note B. Or we can change pitch by percent, say typing in 50, and that we want our sound to be 50% higher. Or we can do negative 50 and make it 50% lower. Let's go for something crazy and make it 200% higher. So here we made our baby sound higher, but because we were changing the pitch and not the speed, it didn't happen faster. We didn't change the tempo. Let's undo that, and we'll go ahead and change the tempo now. So now we can change the tempo. Again, we can use positive or negative numbers. Let's change the tempo to negative 50. We'll make it half as slow, or half as long. And so we've stretched out our sound without making it sound lower. Let's go ahead and undo that and look at some other effects. Another useful tape effect is the echo. And this is a really simple one. We can choose our delay time. How often do we want our echoes to happen? Right now it's set to every second. Let's make it every half a second. And we can change our decay factor. How loud, what's the amplitude of every repeat? Right now it's set to 0.5. We'll make it last a little longer. We'll raise that to 0.75, and we'll hit OK. Notice that our echo would have made our sound last a little longer, but because our sound was short, we didn't get the full echo. So what we can do, I'm going to undo that. I'm going to skip to the end, and I'm going to generate some silence at the end. Just a way to add some extra silence. So let's add 30 seconds of silence to the end. So we have a lot of room to work with. We'll highlight everything. Add in our echo. It remembers our settings from last time. And now we can hear our sound with its full echo trail. So I'm going to undo that and also undo the silence that we added. Back to our original baby sound. And so there's lots of different effects here that you can choose from. I'll let you explore some of the others on your own, but notice that there is a place where you can add reverb, and there's an equalizer where you can adjust the bass and the treble and do some filtering. And then below the line here, there's a lot of additional third-party plugins. So some of these will be different on your computers than they are on my computer here, but there's all sorts of different ones to choose from, and these would be great to explore also. But I just want to show you a few more that affect the amplitude of the sound. So what I'm going to do is move down to Amplify. Oops, I have to select my sound, otherwise I wouldn't be amplifying anything. I'm going to click in there, highlight everything, and let's amplify the sound. And this is where we make the sound louder or softer. If we were to make the sound louder or softer here, we're just affecting what we're listening to and not what's actually happening in the waveform itself. If we want to actually change the volume of the sound itself, of the sound file, then we come here to the amplifier. So right now it's giving us a default of 0, meaning we can't make it any louder before we'd get some distortion. Right now it fits right here in the window nicely. So we can't make it any louder, but we could make it quieter. So let's make it quieter by, say, negative 9 dB. Not 90, but 9 dB. So now it'll make the sound quieter. I'm going to hit OK. And you see now we've brought it down and made the sound quieter. If we decide that was too much, we could highlight it again, go in, amplify, and we can now bring our sound up 9 dB before we would get to any distortion. Let's bring it up maybe just a few more to 3. Maybe just a little louder, and maybe that's a good volume. Another useful amplitude tool is to normalize the sound. So let's highlight everything. I'm going to hit Command A to highlight everything, go to Effect, and Normalize. Now we'll talk again about normalization later in the class, but what normalization does is it finds the loudest point of the sound, which would probably be around here somewhere, and it's going to amplify that sound to the loudest point before we get to any distortion. And we can set what that point is. Right now it's set to -1. We can go as high as 0. We can't go any higher than that, otherwise it wouldn't let us. We can go as high as 0, but let's, to be safe, we'll give it a little bit of wiggle room and move it to -1 dB. That means it's going to be 1 decibel quieter than the loudest point that it can be. And so what normalization does is it brings the sound to the loudest point before we get to any distortion. Normalization is a really good habit to get into. When you're finished working on a sound file, the last thing you should do is normalize it, and that way before you export your sound, you have it at the optimal volume to work with in other programs. That way you make sure that the sound you're exporting is not too quiet. The last thing I'll show you are the fades. Let's say we wanted to fade into our baby sound instead of it starting so abruptly. So I'm going to highlight just the beginning of the sound. I'm going to go up to Effect and Fade In. Now this doesn't give me any options. It just performs a very simple task. It takes the beginning of the sound, moves it to 0, and then fades up to the end of the sound. This is a good way to clean up the beginning and the end of your sound file if you want to avoid any abrupt changes or clicks. You could also fade out the end. Our sound kind of has a nice fade out already, but why not? Let me fade it out even more. So let's say we're happy with all of the edits that we made, and we want to export this sound so we can use it in other programs, like GarageBand. We can go up to File, and we can save our project. This would just save the Audacity session, sort of like making a GarageBand project. But we want to export our sound into a sound file. So we're going to move down to Export. And here we can name our file and choose where we're going to save it. Saving it to the desktop is perfectly fine. And I'm going to rename this Baby Fade In. And we can choose what file format we want to use. I'm going to stick with the AIFF, which is a high-quality lossless format. We'll talk more about what that means later in the course. And we'll just hit Save. It allows me to tag the file. I'm not going to mess with that right now. And then now here on my desktop, I have the baby sound with the fade in, which I can import into GarageBand or into any other program. So I hope you found that useful. I know I went through some things pretty quickly. By all means, take all the time you want to explore and get to know Audacity, and then use this in your assignment to perform a few different processes to different sounds, then export them and import them into GarageBand. All right, have a great weekend.